Greetings, food lovers everywhere, and welcome to E-Train Talks. I'm E-Train. I'm a 13-year-old literacy advocate, podcast host, and I am so excited for today's interview. This is probably one of my favorites that I'm going to be hosting of all time. It's just a fantastic bookish day, because sitting next to me is a library legend, a literary hero to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of book and literacy lovers all across the globe. And I know that you are all dying to know a little bit more about the one, the only, the library extraordinaire, Mychal Threets. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So I cannot imagine anyone out there in the book world not knowing who you are. But in case some people don't, here's a little bit about Mychal. So he is inspiring. Ever since 2020, Mychal has been sharing smiles with inspirational stories and library videos for his now, I kind of counted, I did like the calculations, all the math stuff, over 2 million social media followers across all platforms. He's a change maker, a social media influencer, an advocate of the bookish kind, which is the best kind.
It really is.
And let's get right into it. So if you're in the book world or a library lover or a reader, you probably know that Mychal is a really big spokesperson for the wondrous world of libraries. I mean, what is there not to like about libraries? They're the greatest things in the world. So through all the stories you share of library kids and library grown-ups that you meet, the meaningful stories that you share, and of course all the bookish memories you talk about, I know this is a really tough question, but is there one library experience or story of yours that has made the biggest impact on your life?
You know what? It really is a very tough question. I'm very excited to be having this conversation with you. Library stories are something that I've always talked about for a very long time. I was a librarian. I still am a librarian. I was a librarian for 10 years, and just so many stories I've never told at all. I think just for me, picking just one is just like asking a librarian, what's your favorite book? I don't know if it's entirely possible. But I think for me, honestly, just the stories about people message me on social media saying like, thank you for talking about mental health. Thank you for talking about anxiety. Thank you for talking about depression. You saved my life. And I always tell them that I didn't save their life. They saved their own life by having the courage to talk about things, to take it one day at a time. And that's the most special thing in the world to me. And other than that, I think I love when people just send me messages like they're like, look, I got my library card. It means so much. And they're like, but it's everywhere. It's not just Solano County. It's Oakland. It's Sacramento. Yeah. It's even places like Australia, Japan. And they're like, look, I got my library card. Here are my library kids in the library. Pictures of themselves. So just the story. Honestly, the story that people send me every day are my favorite ones. I couldn't pick just one. But probably for me personally, I think I grew up in the library that we're in right now. And just having brought my family pet to the library for the pet parade is my core library memory. I always talk about that whenever I have the chance, and just her getting a ribbon for coming to the library. I thought she was the only one who got a ribbon. I thought we were super special. But of course it's a library, so they gave every other kid, every other animal a ribbon too, which I was a little bit crushed by. But it was still very meaningful, very powerful that me and my family cat got a ribbon from our local library.
That's amazing. And cats are my favorite animal, my favorite pet.
Sure.
And so you have that connection.
We do. I love all animals, but cats are just something special. That's why I have two. They can be quite bothersome. They're very pesty, but they're beloved creatures at heart.
Yep. They don't need us, but they still love us.
Exactly. They don't pay any rent, but they're happy that we pay rent for them.
Yeah. Buy all their food, and even sometimes they still don't act grateful.
Exactly. I don't know where they get the nerve, but we keep.
Have books always been a part of your life, libraries? And is there a book from any time in your life that you go back to time and time again? Whether it's a children's book, adult book, any kind of genre, is there one that continues to touch your life and help you?
There's not one book necessarily that it's always kept my whole just one title. Again, just being a library person, it's just very hard to pick those one books, but there are quite a few. I'm wearing a jacket right now, but this whole arm is just filled of picture book tattoos. Most of the ones that were most special to me, Where the Wild Things Are, Richard Scarry's Busy World, Lily Worm in the Apple Car, Mr. Frumble in the Pickle Car, Alice in Wonderland. Just so many wonderful books. The monster at the end of this book featuring the lovable furry Grover. But probably Holes by Louis Acker, one of my all-time favorite books. A book that kind of launched my love for libraries, for books. My great aunt gifted it to me for my birthday. And I love it just because of that connection to family, books and literature and family. They go hand in hand. But just also just falling in love with the characters. It was hard for me to make friends as a kid. So having all those books that I was able to befriend always meant something special to me. But then I think just anything from Beverly Cleary. So Ramona and Beezus, Henry Huggins, Ralph S. Mouse, all those characters I'll always have a fondness for, just for those early friendships and just that introduction into the literature world that has now spiraled into 30 plus years later, and I'm still loving books every single day.
And I just think it's so cool you have a whole armful of tattoos of picture book characters. That's my dream when I grow up.
It's a good dream. It's not a dream that my mom was too fond of when I had it as a kid, but now because I have like Arthur Reed library card tattoo, she doesn't cry as much when she talks about my tattoos. So
oh, that's good.
It is good. Yeah.
So I know you've had to deal with bullies and unjust hate online, and it just hurts my heart. It hurts all of our hearts that you've had to deal with that. And I've been bullied and targeted for my book journey, especially by kids in school, like middle schoolers. They can be ruthless.
Yes.
Yeah, so I have so much empathy for you, but what I admire most about you is how you combat that hate. Instead of fighting fire with fire, you fight hate with love. That's just a quality that I hope to have one day. And I hope it's just something that I strive for. So this must still be really tough for you, even through all of that. And I know I'm just a kid, but I wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you, and I'm happy that you're still here, that you're doing all of this. And how do you find the patience and strength to fight unkindness with joy?
You know, I really appreciate that. That's so kind. I'm so sorry that you've dealt with bullying yourself. As you said, middle school can be very tough. So I'm happy that you're still here today, that you're talking with me right now. That's so cool. I'm proud of how far you've come. I've, of course, have seen some of your videos and different things. So I admire all that you do for literature and the bookish world. You know what? I think I combat bullies and bullying with kindness. Just because of those around me, those I was raised by. I was raised by my parents who were very kind. Raised by my grandparents. I grew up with 4 grandparents and two great grandparents, so I know that I'm very lucky in that regard. So I think just being filled with kindness by my family, and then also I was raised in a way by Mr. Rogers, by LeVar Burton, by Bob Ross, by Steve Irwin. So kind of like the ministers of kindness, if you will, is kind of like who I grew up watching and wanting to emulate. So just trying to be like them. So like when I get bullied, when I observe bullying, when I see it, it just makes me very saddened. And I just approach it with, I'm like, what would they do? And also I have a group of people around me who I call my mental health check-in team. So I'm like, what would they tell me? Yeah. What do they think of me? Even though bullying is always hurtful. It's never right. It's never called for. I'm like, you know what? But what would like my friends, what would the people care about me? What would they say about me? How would they want me to react? And then that's how I try to react. And most importantly, I think like how would the library kids, what do they need? Because I'm very much aware that nowadays a lot of library kids see the content I make, they see the videos I put out, and I'm like, you know what? If they saw this, how would they feel? What would I say to them if they came across this? And I'm like, they would need kindness, they would need empathy, just like everyone does, library kids, library grown-ups, and that's what I try to do. And I also am like, you know what? Bullies, they're in a hard place themselves. Bullying is never okay. Right. I'm like, you know what? Half the time, bullies probably need to hear a kind word too. They could have been bullied themselves, or they could be going through their worst possible day. And I just want to remind them that as much as their bullying is never going to be okay, they're valued too. They belong in this world just as much as the rest of us. So I really am just trying to conquer bullying with kindness. And I think we're getting there day by day. I think so many people are choosing kindness over everything. I've seen a couple of videos from people who are like, you know what, I'm giving up hate. I'm giving up hating for a year. I'm like, you know what, even if you give up hating for a day, for a week, that's a good start. Yeah. That's where we can move forward. So if people give up hating, give up bullying, we'll just live in a much kinder world.
So my next question for you, I can flip through that. So your literacy advocacy journey, it's continued to be incredible. You've made an impact on literally hundreds of thousands of people. That's just amazing. And every single day, you're inspiring another person to pick up a library card. Maybe hundreds of people to do so.
Hopefully.
And you've had the chance to speak with news stations, at conferences, events. You've gone to libraries. You have dreams of going to the Supreme Court, to courts all around the world to speak up for libraries. That's just, everybody, round of applause. One sec, just a round of applause for Mychal. You're doing amazing things. And will you share what just this entire experience has been like ever since you have just, I guess you could say, achieved fame on the internet? Bookish fame, the best kind of fame. And just can you share what this experience has been like and what you've learned from all of it?
Yeah, you know what? That's a great question. It's a question I ask myself actually every single day. Like, what have I learned? I still don't see myself as a famous person, even like book fame. I know it's there. I just am not
Yeah.
like in the best of ways. I'm not totally fond of it. It's just not it's not the person I'm wired to be.
Yeah.
I'm very much like I try to be a behind the scenes person.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy social media. I've been doing social media since I was 12, 13 years old. AIM, Instant Messenger, and MySpace days. So it's something I've enjoyed for a long time. But I never sought out to be on book social media, getting to the point that I've gotten to. But I'm very grateful. I think the best the best word to describe my feelings are overwhelmed, at all times, just constant overwhelm. Um, some days, to be honest, some days are good, some days are bad, but
Yeah.
most overall, it's always a good feeling of overwhelm. Like it's so cool for libraries. It's so
Right.
cool for the bookish world. It's cool to see like people like Steph Curry, Jennifer Garner,
Mm-hmm.
Malala, all these people talking about books, like
Yeah.
writing books, talking about how important it is to see yourselves in books, on books, making a case for there to be more librarians in the world, for there to be a school librarian in every single school library. So I think that's what it means most to me. Is like I need to be grateful for the platform I've been gifted, that I've been blessed with, to do all I can for all sorts of library people, for the extra help library people who, to me, are super important. Like they're a paid position and they make it possible so that we can take care of our mental health, so that we can go on vacation, so we can take sick leave.
Mm-hmm.
But then library assistants, library associates, librarians, and so on. It's so important for me to be able to be an advocate for literacy, just like yourself.
Yeah.
Being able to take a stand for
Mm-hmm.
books, for literature, to raise literacy. The best way for us to increase literacy is to talk about the book joy that I'm always talking about. Like that's
Yeah.
how we get kids literate, is let them read picture books, let them read Mobileums, let them read Spider-Man,
Yeah.
Batman,
Yeah.
Paw Patrol, whatever they enjoy. That's how they're going to keep on being hungry for more and more books. That's when they're going to keep on devouring more and more literature, and that's how we get fourth graders to fourth grade reading level, eighth graders to eighth grade reading level, and so on. And for me, that means I have to talk to as many people as I can, just like we're doing right now, about the importance of books, the importance of joy. Um, I've already gotten to go talk with the senator's office in Washington D.C., the House of Representatives in California's office, and just being thankful for all these opportunities to say, hey, you don't know who I am. My name is Mychal. I'm a library lover, a lifelong advocate for literacy, and I just want to do all I can to make sure everyone remembers that libraries exist, that you should all get a library card. You don't have to get it tattooed on your arm like I do. You can. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong. There's nothing wrong with that either. I don't have a trademark on it, but just reminding people that library joy and book joy is always there for them whenever they're ready for it. It
Mhm.
always exists.
Yeah. In doing research for our talk, I read that one way, as I mentioned, you'd like to fight for literacy is to go before Congress and talk about more library funding. And I know you've had the chance, you just said so, to talk to the senator's office and to the House of Representatives in California. So is this, I mean, I guess you could call it a goal, but in reality, you're already doing so just by talking on social media, going there in person as well. So can you share a little bit more about what your hope is to, like, what you hope that your words can do to make change for libraries?
It's such a tough question. It's tough with talking with them because they have such a hard job themselves. That my goal is just that they'll recognize like the role that libraries play in the world. I mean, libraries are the last third place. There's a place where you can just go for free. You can just exist as you are. There's unhoused people. There's mentally ill people. They don't have to leave their anxiety outside the door. They don't have to leave their panic attacks outside the door. We don't want people to have anxiety attacks. We don't want people to have panic attacks in the library. But it's not like they're forbidden. We want people to feel safe just as they are. There's library kids, there's library grown-ups, there's teens. Everybody can come into the library. And that's what I hope, like in going to Congress and having all these conversations, that people remember what the library represents. It represents community. It represents a united front. It's all of us being able to get books. Libraries are so much more than books. We'll always be all about books. But we're audiobooks, we're musical instrument collections, we're board game collections, we're video game collections, which library grown-ups are not always fond to hear, but is one way to get people into those library doors. So I think that's what I'm trying to remind them of, is like that's that library. Everybody has a library story. Every person that I've ever encountered has at one time in their life entered a library, or at least knows someone who loves a library. Someone who has a library card. It is the most important card in your wallet, and I think that's what I'm trying to remind them of. That's why we need libraries. That's why libraries deserve so much more funding because it represents so much. It's that place for everybody to save money, to live, to get the resources they need, to be the best possible human being they can. And then we can get more and more people into libraries, working for libraries, visiting libraries, because we need more library workers. We need people to see that they deserve to be in libraries, that they belong in libraries as a place for them. And I just hope that they'll just listen to me, and more importantly, that they'll listen to other library people who are out there doing exactly what I'm doing. I think that's the most important thing that I remind them of, is that I'm not the only person talking about libraries.
Right.
I have a quiet speaking voice, but I have a very loud library voice on the internet when it comes to talking about advocacy for libraries. The library stories I share day in and day out, they happen in all libraries, every day, every single week. I'm not a special librarian. I just happen to have a lot of library love, a lot of library joy, and people listen. But if you go to any of your local libraries, you'll see how cool libraries are, how much they mean to every single one of us. And that's my goal in talking to senators, representatives, and hopefully maybe one day vice presidents, presidents. But more importantly, honestly, just talking to library kids like yourself are the most meaningful conversations to me, because that's how we spread library love and library joy, is through word of mouth, is reminding all these people who are library grown-ups that they used to be library kids, because once a library kid, always a library kid. And that's what we're going to remind them of, that they're these library kids who need a library just as much as they needed it when they were kids too.
Will you share any meaningful library story that you have had? Maybe one that another person that you know has experienced.
Yeah, I'm so glad that the Sacramento Public Library and all libraries means so much to you. That's why I keep on, just as you just said, that's to remind people of that everybody has a meaningful library story. I think I shared the most meaningful one that I had earlier about my cat coming to the pet parade, but also just participating in like summer reading. I was a kid who was trying to read every single book in the children's section. So when it came time to do like the Pizza Hut Book Challenge, I was always trying to convince librarians, like, is it time? Is it time where I can read my books and I can get my pizza voucher? I was always that kid for incentives. Pizza for books, I was all about it. I was like, bring it on, give me more. I think for me the biggest story that I've ever come across that I love is one that I never thought would receive as much love as it did, and it's a story of the three kids who read the Spanish book on the blue couch. I honestly thought that was the one story that I was like, you know what, this is the story for me. I'm not sure if it's going to be meaningful to anybody else, but I love this story. I love this encounter. I love the interaction. And I shared that story, and I did not think many people would react to it at all. I think it is probably the library story that I've shared that has probably gotten the most love of all the stories. And I think it's just because it's a moment of two kids who didn't know Spanish at all, and their library grown-ups. And then one kid who did know Spanish just coming together. And I think it's just like that perfect picture of what a library represents, that we can all come together, no matter our backgrounds, no matter if we're different races, if we speak different languages. We can all just find that love. We can all find like the support, encouragement, and friendship around a single book, even if it's for one day, even if we don't understand the book. Just that chance to come together around literature, around literacy, means so much. And I think that's what that encounter that's what it reminded me of. Just seeing those three kids on a very tiny blue couch, reading together to them, like be like, I don't know what's being said, but it's story time. Let's do this. And one kid is the story time presenter, and library grown-ups are just all around. None of them know each other, but they're just like, you know what? This is a library. This happens. Even if this is the only day where we're going to be library friends, it's a special day. It's a special moment. And I'm so honored to have told that story, to have been there to witness that story. And I just love, and I'm still blown away by how many people also love that story as much as I love that story.
And so I also learned about your Library Afro Revolution Day. I mean, I just love the title. I love the name. And you're co-hosting it with Blair Imani Ali. So will you please share what Library Afro Revolution Day is and how this wonderful idea came about?
You know what? That's another year just full of great questions. Blair Imani is such a wonderful person. Blair and I have never met yet in person. The first time that we're going to meet in person will be at Library Afro Revolution Day, and we're just so excited for it. It came about just by happenstance. I shared a library story where there was a person who kind of made fun of my hair in a comment. They told me to cut it. And I mentioned that briefly in one video, and I just used it to tell another library story about how another library kid complimented me on my afro. They're like, you have an afro just like me. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And we talked about a book called Lotus Bloom and the Afro Revolution. And I told the kid, I was like, you know what? Maybe one day we can have a library out for Revolution Day. And I forgot that sometimes I say things and it sticks. And that one stuck. And now it's becoming a very real thing. And the library out for Revolution Day, it really it's a day of love. It's a day of joy. It's a day of self-love, of self-reflection. Librarian and I are trying to find a really cool way to dedicate it partially to Next Benedict, and their memory and their family, helping them to persevere, to continue on. So we're getting close to, I think, kind people donated close to $10,000, actually $20,000,
That's
for the
amazing.
initiative. Yeah, I'm so blown away, so blessed by people's kindness. And we're just gonna get a bunch of books to hand out to people on that day.
And I mean, it's the best kind of revolution. You got library love,
Yes.
hair love, every kind of love, and it's all coming together.
Exactly. I can't wait. It's one of the most exciting things I'll ever do. Very very nervous just because I've never done
Yeah.
something like this before. But I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
It's not gonna be bad. It's books. It's
Yeah.
things I love. It's literally giving out books.
Mhm.
Is the whole main event. And I get to meet my new friend Blair, and I'm sure I'm gonna meet a whole bunch of new friends as well.
Yeah.
Some of my friends, some of my mental health check-in team people, and then my family members are planning to go too. So it's just gonna be honestly one of the coolest days of my life, I'm thinking.
We've got to talk about Arthur. Arthur is my, I mean, yeah, it's my favorite show on PBS Kids, and I've used to watch clips of it all the time when I was little. It's just having fun isn't hard when you have a library card.
Not at all.
That's just my favorite quote of all time. And you actually have had the chance. You have the opportunity to be PBS's resident librarian.
Yes.
And so that's just must be an amazing experience for you because I know Arthur helped instill a love of books in
Yes.
you as a kid and even as a grown up now.
Mhm.
So what has that full circle experience been like for you? And can you see yourself doing more PBS Kids, PBS, or any kind of similar book events in the future?
You know what? Being the PBS resident librarian has been like the ultimate, I was gonna say ultimate dream, but it was never a dream of mine. It
Yeah.
wasn't something that I thought would ever happen. I was just that kid, just like yourself,
Mhm.
watching Arthur, watching Reading Rainbow. I was just like, this is so much fun. This is great.
Yeah.
I want to do this stuff. But in my
Yeah.
wildest dreams, I never thought it would happen. So it is definitely that like pinch me moment, like PBS resident librarian. When am I gonna wake up? When am I just gonna be back at my desk? When am I gonna be back in college again? Like, oh, now you know your whole trajectory. How are you going to get there? And it really is just full circle, just like you said. I mean, I have Arthur Reed's library card tattooed on me. I grew up watching Arthur Reed, and now to be a PBS resident librarian, having being able to tell library stories, being able to make book recommendations, being able to remind people that having fun isn't hard when you have a library card.
Yeah.
Just like Arthur and friends said, video after video, is so very cool. It's something that I'll never forget. It is by far one of the coolest moments I've ever had come out of all of this wild social media life. And to answer the other part of your question, I would love to do more stuff with PBS Kids. I think they still have a few more videos to post. It was partially with PBS Kids and with PBS.
Yeah.
So there's also some library grown-up recommendations
Mhm.
and some library kid stories and library kid recommendations. So no matter what, it's been the time of my life. But I'll take any opportunity to share library joy on whichever platform I possibly
And
can.
one subject I've been thinking about a lot lately is just kind of keeping writing and keeping libraries like more relatable and current. I know personally from experience, middle schoolers, there's a lot of profanity, there's a lot of slang used, and it's really ever changing.
Sure.
So, as a former librarian who has seen countless kids check out stories, and what's your opinion on the usage of profanity or slang in middle grade or children's books, or just in the library? What are the rules kind of set?
Yeah, what a difficult question. You know, I think as a former librarian, as a person who will always be a librarian, I think once you have the master's degree in library information science, a cool thing is you get to always say you're a version of a librarian, which I'm really locking on to. That's a complicated question. I wouldn't say. I think I'll address first like the profanity in books. I'm not. I would say I'm very neutral. I think it all depends on what the story's about.
Right.
If it's like set in like a school setting for middle graders, I think it talks about the reality that there is cursing in middle schools.
Yeah.
Library grown-ups may not like to hear that, but
Mhm.
it is such. Kids are growing up. They're experimenting. They're seeing different things, and sometimes it happens, and they're just expressing themselves. And you never know what their context is, who they're around. So for me, it's not something where I'm like, come on, authors, don't do that anymore. I think it's a lesson for publishers to say, oh, you know what? If you're going to publish a book, a middle grade book, a book with profanity geared towards kids, Make sure you make that very clear in the descriptions, in the reviews, and say, hey, it's not a 1 out of 5 stars, but you and your library kids, and your school library kids may want to be aware that this exists. And for slang, I honestly think that slang is, I wouldn't say appropriate, but I'm glad that it's in so many picture books, in books, just because it is very real. It's a way for us to connect. As you and I have mentioned, English language can be tricky. So sometimes slang makes language, makes talking just a little bit easier. It's a way for all of us to kind of like connect. I think even times when people speak different languages, when they're from different backgrounds, slang is what they see first, just because they'll watch streaming shows and like, oh, this language says this language says that. I'm going to lock on to that word. So I think slang, interestingly enough, can be a way for us to form around communication, around those difficult words, those difficult talks. So it's honestly a very complicated discussion, but it's a necessary discussion. I'm glad you posed a question. I don't feel like I answered it fully, but I feel like it's difficult. Difficult is the best word, but I think they should exist from time to time. Not so much in picture books, but definitely in middle grade books. As you get older and older, it is appropriate. It's real. It's real life. It's real subjects. And I think as long as kids and grown-ups can have those conversations honestly and openly, I think it's okay. And I think you're still going to be able to celebrate your freedom to read and keep on going.
I love that answer. And before I get to another question, it's time for a mental health check-in. So this is what I've been really waiting for. I've seen you talk about it. I just don't think that in enough interviews there's just a pause to ask you, just the person, are you okay? How are you feeling right now?
I appreciate that. You know what? I love that. I ask people what you just posed a lot. Mental health checks. And I love that people do those on me now. Honestly, to answer the question, I am not doing the greatest, but I'm doing okay day by day. I'm getting there day by day. Conversations like this help out a lot. And just being surrounded by such kind people, surrounded by books, helps my mindset. It helps me get to a place where I'm okay. Or even on mornings where I'm like, hey, you know what? Sometimes like I wake up and I'm like, you know what? I just want to lay on my pillow. I'm proud of myself for just waking up, and that's enough. I'm proud of myself that I was motivated by our conversation today to get all the way out of bed. To feed my cats. They were happy. They're like, oh, he's feeling good enough to feed us today. Good job, owner. Good job, Dad. And then I left outside the house and drove all the way here. I'm so happy I did. So thank you for that mental health check-in. And how is your mental health doing?
I'm doing good. Middle school can be tough sometimes. But I'm going to be going to a new school. I'm going to be going to a new environment to kind of make it a little bit easier. Wow. Like it can be tough sometimes. But
good for you.
I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to kind of break free. Like middle school can be like a toxic relationship sometimes.
Sure.
I mean, I've not experienced that, but it's just it can be tough. But I'm trying, and by toxic relationship I mean like a partners, not like school.
Sure.
Just wanted to reiterate.
Different settings.
But I'm trying to do better.
Good. No, I'm happy for you. I hope that the new environment means a lot and really helps your mental health and helps where you are. And so you can keep on moving forward and do great things like you're already doing.
Yeah, thank you. And so another question that I wanted to talk about, I have a lot of these. But so I mean, Banned Books Week is 5. Let me count. Yes, 7 months away.
Give or take.
Give or take. And I mean, I just think it's always important to talk about it. Like, there shouldn't just be Black History Month. Every month should be. Every month is. Sure. And just about everything. So Banned Books Week should be Banned Book Week, Banned Book Everything Week. I guess every day.
I agree.
So what's your? I mean, I know that you are against book banning. I mean, we all are. But just can you dive a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's another, we're talking about such necessary, complicated discussions, and I think. For me and for many library workers, library colleagues who I've been around, instead of addressing it as banned books, we love to talk about celebrating their freedom to read. I think it's just such a much better way. Not that talking about banned books is wrong, but I'm all about library joy and book joy. So I think talking about celebrating their freedom to read is how we convince people of how wrong book banning is. That it's for me, I think it should be okay for a library kid to have a conversation about books that they want to read, books that they're ready for. Because books, as we talked about, we're all at different levels in life. We're all in different areas. Sometimes you could be 8 years old and you're ready for high school books. Sometimes
Yeah.
you could be eight years old and you're only ready for second grade books. It's all different. So that's why it's important for grown-ups and kids to have those conversations. I think the things that banned books do that people don't realize is that means you eliminate the chance for other library kids and other library grown-ups to have those conversations on their own. You make it obsolete so their conversation is meaningless because once that book is banned, they can't read it even if their grown-up was okay with it. And that's the problem, is that we should all have access to as many books as possible. Especially like you said, Black History Month should be celebrated every single month.
Yeah.
It is celebrated every single month.
Yeah.
Asian American and Pacific Islander Month should be every single month. We should be celebrating all of our existence, all of our lives in literature every single day.
Yeah.
If we can. I mean, there's only 24 hours. We can only read so many books. I myself am not a speed reader. Sometimes I'll listen to Libby and I'll turn up the audiobook speed.
Yeah.
But I can only read so many books still. So for me, I think we just need to remind people to actually read the books if they're going to call for the books to be banned, and have an honest conversation. Like, is this book just not for my child, or do I really think it's not for every single children? And if so, why do I feel that way? Have I had conversations with a whole bunch of other library grown-ups and library kids? Not just my friends, not just my neighbors, but even strangers. Like, what do you think about this book?
Yeah.
Like, if people are gonna ask for a book to be banned, they need to do the due diligence and talk to as many people as possible so they can understand the ramifications of what come from that.
Absolutely.
And it's much more important, again, I'm just going to keep on reiterating it, to talk about the celebration of the freedom to read, because we are all free to read. We all have the right to read. We should see ourselves represented on books, on the pages. A story I tell again and again is when I was a children's librarian in Vallejo, we would take a suitcase full of books to the schools, and there would be chock full of so many different books, nonfiction books, picture books, chapter books, biographies, and almost every single time there would be a book with like a whole bunch of different kids on the cover, and there would be kids who would see that book and they'd be like, hey, look, and they hand it to their friends and they're like, this looks just like you. And that's what celebrating the freedom to read is seeing yourself on the cover of a book, in the book, and be like, this book is for me. I belong in this book. Books are for me. And banned books don't do that. They take away the belonging. They take away the freedom. Celebrating the freedom to read brings everybody back into literature. It shows us that literacy is for you. It's something that we're all possible, that we all deserve. And I think that's my take on banned books and on celebrating the freedom to read.
Yeah, and just, it's okay. Parents, you can tell your kid, if you don't want your kid to read a story, that's perfectly fine. But just because you don't want your kid to read it doesn't mean that every kid can't read it. And I think, like you said, freedom and freedom to read, they go hand in hand.
Yes.
If you don't have one, you don't have the other.
Exactly.
So we got to combine them and bring freedom, or like freedom, to everybody.
Yes, that's the least we can do.
Yeah. And so normally I ask for my final question, which makes me sad because I love this conversation. But normally I ask if you could meet any book character or author, who it would be and why.
Mm-hmm.
But in honor of your tattoo arm full of picture book characters from Arthur Reed, everybody. So I thought I'd ask, and I know this is a tough one, if you could meet just one of the special characters that you have tattooed on your arm. It could be for a lunch, maybe just kind of a bike ride with them, sort of conversation. Who would it be and why?
I love this question. I also am very sad that this has been such a great conversation, such a fun, bookish conversation to spend a morning, to spend a day with. Just one. Wow. I mean, there's Lowly Worm, there's Mr. Frumble, there's a Mad Hatter, there's Max, the King of the Wild Things. But I think I would do young library kid me a disservice if I didn't choose Arthur Reed. Arthur Reed is like my hero of heroes. As much as a library grown up can talk about a animated aardvark, to me is very much is always going to be Arthur Reed. Arthur Reed is a very real character, a very real figure, but it would be Arthur Reed for lunch, for a bike ride, for dinner, for reading together in silence, for talking about mental health. I would love to do a mental health check-in with Arthur Reed, as you kindly did with me. Arthur Reed, I think to me is it was always like one of my very first friends sitting there. Like even so much so, like I didn't realize that Arthur Reed was an aardvark when I first started watching Arthur. When I first started reading Arthur, it was just Arthur, just the idea of Arthur Reed, of that library card, of that character, and just a chance to speak with Arthur, to ride a bike with Arthur, talk about books with Arthur would make my entire life so much better. And I mean, I think that's ultimately why I got Arthur Reed's library card, was just like, this is me, this is my friend Arthur, this is what we're gonna do together.
And I'm just learning now that Arthur's an aardvark. But yeah, so thank you so much for taking time out of your day, Mychal.
you.
This has been such a fun interview, and I've learned so much. I want to go to my library even more now. I want to check out every single book there and tell all my friends, hey, check out libraries. Libraries are amazing. Libraries are the best. And I just feel so lucky that I had the chance to talk with you. And I now just want to say thank you. Just thank you for spreading so much positivity, so much book joy, library joy. You're a true hero. And even if you don't feel that way, you really are. You're impacting so many kids' lives, so many adults' lives, everybody.
No, thank you so much. I truly appreciate this. I appreciate you. I appreciate that you're alive. I'm so happy that you're in this world.
Me too.
I'm happy that we got to have this conversation together. It's definitely a great moment that I will cherish for the rest of my life. I hope you continue to prioritize your mental health. I wish you best of luck in your new environment. I know you're going to succeed. I know you're going to keep on doing well. And I'm proud of all that you do for literacy, for education, for books. I'm just so excited for your future. I can't wait to see what you do years from now. I know long after I fade behind the scenes again that you're going to be doing great things, extraordinary things. And I'm just so excited to see what you do for the world and how the world treats you with as much kindness as possible.
Thank you. And I want to be like you when I grow up, Mychal.
Thank you.
So until next time, everybody, stay safe, keep reading, and if you haven't in a while, go check out your local library. They're amazing places, they're wondrous, they're beautiful. And I'll see all of you in the next one. Bye-bye.